Hello and welcome back to the Motorsport Bear Talk podcast. I'm your host Didi, and joining me once again today is my friend and your co-host Vedant. On this episode, we'll be talking about the insane Imola GP that took place last weekend. So let's grab some chai, take our seats, ready our opinions, and dive right into the conversation. Hello Vedant, how have you been? It's been a crazy weekend, and I'm still buzzing from what happened yesterday.
Hello, Divya. Absolutely. A wet race at an old school circuit like Imola is something to not miss. And I'm glad we had a great race last weekend. This weekend, sorry.
Exactly. Yeah, I was not as I said in the Imola GP preview that we did. I was not expecting anything from Imola at all, except a very interesting qualifying. But it delivered thanks to the race, and like you said, an old school circuit, and unexpectedly so, a lot to talk about. So let's dive right into it. Let's talk about first up Max Verstappen, currently P2 in the World's Drivers' Championship by just 1 point. Lewis Hamilton taking that extra point for the first lap in the Imola GP race. But what a weekend for Max. Quite a bit of a roller coaster for him. What are your thoughts on his performance this weekend?
I think, as Max himself said, he made a rare mistake in his qualifying lap, a very scruffy qualifying lap as he called it. But that race start was absolutely perfect, giving Hamilton just enough room, but
Closing the door.
pushing him closing the door at the right point and flying away after that. Absolutely perfect race start.
Definitely, like you said, he himself came out and said he admitted his mistake, and I think that was a real sign of maturity from Max Verstappen that we have not seen in the past. Usually, he would brush aside any comments about his mistakes, but definitely a scruffy qualifying, and it was just funny to hear Max make a comment about Honda making great lawnmowers, and I thought it was a little untimely, so especially since Honda is definitely delivering on their promise this year. But again, like you said, great race after that from Max too. Just leading throughout and finishing like miles ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who had a different race all by himself. Um, but his Max's race was not without incident either, right? He had a safety car restart incident. Almost gave away the lead to Charles Leclerc. I think it was really nice of Charles, I'd say, to let Verstappen recover from his
Yeah,
spin.
I saw that Charles did slow down. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Lando was like, why did Charles slow down? If it had been me, I would have taken the race lead because it's hard to overtake in Imola, and that might have guaranteed a win. But definitely sportsmanlike of Charles to do what he did. Uh, yeah, I'm just looking forward to this World Championship fight now. I just can't wait. I am buzzing, and I'm just like a little disappointed when I'm thinking about the future because the last race is still slotted to be in Abu Dhabi, and we all know if the race goes down to Abu Dhabi, what's going to happen. So a little disappointed about that, but just can't wait for the season to get underway. And this 2 week break seems insanely long once again. I would not mind a doubleheader this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. With two race wins for both Verstappen and Hamilton, and just 1 point separating them, it's going to be an insane season just from the second race onwards. So it's great to see that Red Bull are finally delivering from the get go, from the race one of the season.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll talk about Lewis in a minute. Let's talk about Max's teammate Perez. Um, Not the best weekend for him. He was not having a great qualifying, but he turned it around in Q3, put it P2 on the grid, first time he ever started from the first row of the grid in his entire career, and it was starting to look promising, but again he struggled in the race.
Yeah, definitely. Perez did say that he made a few mistakes on his qualifying run and potentially could and had the potential to be P1, but I think had it been a dry race without the wet track, Perez was on soft tires, so he potentially could have had a better start than Hamilton and taken that lead potentially, but that the conditions, the wet track certainly changed everything around for him.
Definitely, and like even at the start, you could see Perez struggling, didn't get off the line really well, fell behind Max almost immediately, and then Charles overtook him the first few laps, and he was finding it difficult to even keep up with Charles in that Red Bull, which has much more pace than the Ferrari, and that was really surprising to see. But
Yeah, he went off twice, once behind the safety car, and once after the second safety car restart.
absolutely,
And he overtook behind the safety car. I'm pretty surprised. A man with that experience, 10 years of Formula One experience, he overtook behind the safety car, which is very surprising.
and yeah,
And
that,
like Red Bull didn't even tell him to go for it or to not go for it.
definitely a miscommunication from both the driver and the team, and it seems like I guess Sergio was just unsettled and had like a little bit of a brain fade, if you want to call it that, or just forgot about it. But definitely, I think Red Bull should have communicated the fact that you're not supposed to overtake under safety car, and I think that also cost Perez the race and the confidence that he might have had going into the race after his great Q3 run. It's kind of disappointing from there, but we're going to Portimao next weekend. It's also an interesting track, and we had an interesting race last year there, so we'll see how Perez does. But again, just a reminder of that how I wouldn't say like the second Red Bull seat is cursed, but how difficult it is to be in that second Red Bull seat, and I don't know if that is what is getting to Perez, but we'll see as the season unfolds. Now let's talk about the driver of the day, the champion, the people's champion, Lando
The people's champion, definitely.
Lando Norris. What a guy! I mean, I'll let you go, and because I have so many thoughts about Lando Norris after watching him race in Imola. I can't even put them like it's really hard to put my words into a sentence that makes sense. So I'll let you go first.
Okay, so Andrea Seidel said after the race that Lando's performance certainly puts him on a better step, on the next step as a racing driver, and which is completely right. We have seen moments of potential from Lando over the past 2 years and 2 races now, but I think everyone, as I said in an earlier episode, everyone, well, like not everyone gives Lando the respect or
The
the
credit he
like
deserves.
the praise he deserves, right? And this performance yesterday just shows you how good a driver he is and how fast he's picking up on the promise.
Absolutely, and if someone who missed out on the race would say Lando's in a McLaren, and he started seventh on the grid like he did in Bahrain, and it's no surprise that he finished P3 in a rain-affected race. But if you consider the whole race, right, he had a quality disappointment, started P7, but Lewis backed him, and that was a great. I really enjoyed that little bit of camaraderie between the two. But again, Lando did not
Exactly.
have a great start of the race. He fell down to P10 while at the start of the race. While Daniel Ricciardo made a place, but Daniel Ricciardo was running P5 at one point. But then Lando came through the field throughout the race to finish P3. And let's talk about McLaren's strategy call. First of all, with Daniel Ricciardo, right? Daniel Ricciardo did not have great pace. The call for team orders, right? McLaren called it, and Daniel was nice enough to let Lando go, which paid off for McLaren.
Yeah.
Which paid a huge dividend for McLaren. And I think kudos to Daniel for making it so easy for McLaren, and recognizing the fact that Lando is definitely driving better than he is currently in the McLaren car.
Currently, exactly.
But
Yeah.
let's talk about the strategy call after the red flag. Now most of the grid was on medium
Mediums.
tires on the restart,
Yeah.
but McLaren took the call, go on the softs. Now when that call happened, I was all over the internet, and I was like, this is the worst mistake McLaren will probably make, and I was
Yeah,
proven wrong over the next 30 laps, and I
I
haven't
know,
been
I know.
happier to be proven wrong ever before.
I know, like we texted during the race, and I was like, "What is going on with McLaren right now?" Because obviously the Ferraris have essentially a similar pace with them, and like it might get risky towards the end of the race, but that is where the call paid off, because Imola, as we know, is a very narrow circuit, and it is very difficult to
And
overtake
not
here.
just that, just the fact that there was only one dry line on the circuit because of the rain affected race, that made it even more difficult to overtake. And we saw a lot of
Exactly.
people go off, like Stroll, Lewis trying to overtake at different points in the circuit, going onto the wet patches. And I guess Charles just didn't want to take that chance over the 17 laps when he was running under 1 second. Uh, when the gap to Lando was basically under 1 second.
Yeah, and as you said, the gap was within 1 second. He had DRS a number of times. Charles Leclerc had DRS a number of times. That just shows you how well Lando performed under pressure. And he even held back Lewis Hamilton for a few laps.
And like I think I don't remember whether it was Andreas Seidel or Zach Brown who later explained the strategy call where they thought out, since it's the Imola Grand Prix, it's hard to overtake. There's only one racing line, one dry line, and basically their intent was to overtake Charles on the restart, maybe even Max if possible.
Yeah.
And then keep the position for as long as possible and defend from Charles, and it definitely paid off. I would not
It-
have
it
imagined
definitely paid off.
the softs lasting for 30 laps. But yeah, anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Yeah, like we covered everything about Lando, but let me just say his pace in qualifying, like he had a pretty eventless practice sessions. The McLaren's pace was gradually improving, but they were not anywhere near what everyone expected of them to be the third fastest car. Like Ferrari and Alpha Tauri were looking faster than them throughout the three practice sessions. But that qualifying lap in Q3, that final lap, if you remove that, that excursion trip on the outside of the track when he went off, if you remove that, like his time definitely improved because of that. But even without that, the time was absolutely perfect. It was great. It was a great lap, and a disappointment to start seventh, but certainly a great race.
Yeah, definitely. And also like, not just Lando versus Charles that happened on track, but Lando holding off Lewis for like 3-4 laps in a car which is like over a second faster than the McLaren was also great. And it was just a few more laps, and if Lando could have held Lewis off a few more times, it would have been a P2 for him. But a great podium nonetheless, and well deserved. So I'm still hoping that Daniel Ricciardo comes through in the next few races, and we can see Lando and Daniel go head to head with each other, go toe to toe. But I was just reminiscing about last year, and I was like, how much carnage would McLaren be causing in the upper midfield? How much of a pain would they be for Red Bull and Mercedes if it was still Carlando and McLaren? And I was just
Yeah.
thinking about that, and I just couldn't stop thinking. So yeah, hopefully Daniel Ricciardo comes through pretty soon. All right. Let's move on. Let's talk about the defending champion now, Lewis Hamilton. What a roller coaster of a race he had. Qualified P1, surprisingly so for everyone and for himself. You could hear that in his team radio after the qualifying finished. But
Yeah. Certainly.
a lot to unpack about Lewis's race. A lot to unpack.
Definitely. So this was his 30th different track that he qualified on pole, which is an insane statistic. Like, given his career and all his records, this statistic itself is quite extraordinary. But yeah, onto the race. That incident on turn 2 certainly affected him, but as we saw, like the tire wear on the Mercedes and the Red Bull was little different. The wear on the inter tires. So Hamilton was closing up on Verstappen after like 30 odd laps, and he was, I think, some 2 or 3 seconds behind.
Definitely, Max
after
was
the-
struggling on his inters as they wore off much quicker than
Yeah.
on Lewis's car, and then I think the gap between them was like under 2.5 seconds when Max pitted, and then Lewis put in another great lap, and the gap came down to like less than, like the virtual gap came down to less than almost half a second, I think, after Max's pit stop. But a great, like, between the pit stop and the red flag and start of the race and the pit stop and the red flag, great drive from Lewis. Keeping that gap under 5 seconds even after wing damage. He was missing
Yeah,
an exit,
exactly.
and he probably also had some flow damage with the way that car bounced off the curbs at turn 2. So that goes to show how hard Lewis was trying on the track to keep up with Max and closing the gap to the Red Bull.
Exactly, but I think that that Mercedes pit stop, they took 2 extra seconds to put on that front right tire, and that potentially cost them. Like if they finished P2, which where they would have finished eventually,
Yep.
but it cost them a chance for a fight.
You are absolutely right. I think the pit stop had needed to be under 2.5 seconds for Lewis to go into turn one with Max and
Yeah.
fight for P1. I think, but that extra second and a half, and there was an interesting explanation for this in the Monday morning debrief on F1.com by Mark Hughes, I think, and he talked about how Mercedes changes the carbon shrouds on the brakes right before the race to allow heating up, the tires, to transfer heat to the tires from the brakes, and apparently that makes it harder for the mechanics to take the tires off the car because it becomes sticky because the wheel expands and whatnot and becomes hard. But Mark Hughes also reported that there was a wheel gun problem with on one of the ends, so the front right tire took forever to come off, and then that is what costed them basically the fight for P1. However, Lewis was closing in on Max before he made the mistake while they were going through traffic. Max was having a really hard time going through traffic because of, again, there only being one dry line
Yeah.
in the race. But again, Lewis Hamilton showing some chinks in his armor, getting impatient, trying to get to P1 and get to take the fight to Max. And kind of funny that both Mercedes cars was sort of taken out by George Russell being involved
George
in the
Russell, yeah.
incident. But yeah, definitely. What do you think about how Lewis handled? Basically, what do you think about Lewis's mistake in the race?
Yeah, definitely. It was a very impatient moment for him. Like, obviously, going through traffic is difficult in itself on any circuit in the world. On a wet track like Imola with only one dry racing line, it's even harder. And that just showed, like, even Lewis Hamilton made a mistake,
Yep.
a very heavy mistake. But his presence of mind and his experience over the years paid off, because he managed to take that car out of the gravel, reversing it. The reversing itself was a little questionable because he joined the track in reverse, and
He didn't have a
we
view.
know from past, like, looking back is very difficult in Formula 1 cars. So that itself was very difficult, but his, as I said, presence of mind was very commendable, and but he was very lucky with the red flag.
Now,
Honestly.
before we move on to the red flag, when you're talking about his great presence of mind, you're talking about the fact that instead of going forward and spinning his rear wheels and digging himself into a hole basically on the gravel, he reversed slowly so that his car wouldn't get stuck in the gravel trap. Right? That's what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
he tried to go ahead, and he did hit the front wing on the wall because he tried to go ahead and take that escape road. But when he hit that front wall, there was no place to go ahead, so he reversed it. But the presence of mind came in when he did not reverse aggressively,
Absolutely.
and he reversed peacefully. That's what.
Absolutely. But yeah, a great recovery from Lewis Hamilton there. But he would have finished P2 unless he got really, really lucky with the red flags. Um,
Definitely, the red flags helped him a lot. He was able to get to the pits easily, get that front wing changed, and unlap himself exactly, and get back in line to claw back and take P2.
Yeah, I wonder if Valtteri got the message after Lewis crashed out of P2. Valtteri, it's James. Time to stop the race.
Yeah.
Uh,
But the Instagram artist Lollipop Man Comics did put out a comic that displayed that, Toto saying, okay, we need something to help Lewis, and Russell and Bottas fighting for it. That, okay, no, I will make that happen.
yeah, that is definitely funny. But yeah, just imagine if Lewis were to be lapped by all the other cars, and if he were to start at P20 even, that would have been a disastrous race, and he couldn't have made it back to P2. and sort of lucky for him that he's in the World Drivers' Championship after this race because Russell and Bottas had that rather dramatic crash at turn two,
Yeah,
which will come on to later.
it's quite ironic, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But luck has always been on Lewis's side, and a lot of people hate him for that. But
Yeah.
he's a seven-time world champion, and he makes his luck sometimes. Sometimes he gets lucky. But anyway, uh, a real roller coaster of a weekend for Lewis Hamilton, finishing P2, but still maintaining that lead in the World Drivers' Championship, like we mentioned earlier, by just 1 point though. So it's gonna be interesting moving forward. Now let's move forward to the two Ferraris. What a weekend for them. Mostly uneventful, except the few times that Carlos went off. But again, a really lucky race for Carlos. Didn't lose a lot of positions every time he went off. And Charles almost putting it in the bin even before the race started. But except that, what a weekend for Ferrari, finishing P4 and P5, getting a whole lot of points. Charles was definitely like a driver of the day contender for me. Almost had an uneventful race, and he held on to that P4 pretty well, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Ferraris certainly did show great pace at here at Imola, and that just showed. Charles qualified P4, and like he's always been a great qualifier with that underperforming Ferrari, but Carlos's pace has been phenomenal. And as I said in a previous episode, that Carlos looks the most comfortable among all the movers.
Drivers who
Yeah,
move,
driver. Yes,
absolutely.
exactly. So he just goes on to show that, and finishing just seconds behind Charles in P5, even after losing all that time, where he went off. It just shows.
But you have to remember that the grid was reset after the red flag, so he all the time he lost had been recovered because of the red flag, and he didn't really have a mishap after the red flag.
Exactly, the time was lost, but he still had that position.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He got lucky because he did have Stroll and Gasly and Ocon behind him at various points in the race.
Yeah.
But he made up those places time and again. But started 11th, came through the field at the very beginning. Made up places, and then he was kind of going back and forth between 8th and 10th. But finished P5. So great race from Carlos. So let's move on to Gasly. Finished P7 thanks to the penalty that Lance Stroll got after the race because of overtaking him off the track. But putting it in P5 in quali again, what a qualifier to pay a Gasly in that AlphaTauri, and I was so disappointed not to be able to see the AlphaTauri's real pace once again this weekend.
Yeah, definitely that strategy call was very strange, but as you said, a great pace from the AlphaTauri. Certainly, we did not see the full pace because the wet conditions and the strategy, but Pierre Gasly qualified P4 last season at Imola as well, and he did crash out on lap 5 or
Lap
6.
eight.
Yeah, so certainly a
Yeah,
very very
and Gasly did mention the fact after the race during the post-race interview that just a minute before the race they realized that they should have gone on to the inters, but there wasn't enough time to make that happen. So they just chose to start the race on the wets, which is kind of surprising because we saw Ocon get into the pits
during the safety car. Yeah, exactly.
During Nicholas Latifi's safety car, and not even that. AlphaTauri, knowing what could have happened, maybe could have gambled by pitting him before the start of the race. He could have started from the pits probably. I don't know if that would have worked out as well though. But even Ocon went to the back of the field after he made that safety car pit stop. So over 6 laps, it would have probably helped Gasly more than it would have hurt him. But anyway, couple bad strategy calls, but great recovery drive from Gasly at the end of the day, and also got a little bit lucky with the red flag. And now let's talk about one of the new teams on the grid, Alpine. First points for them this season. First points for Alpine in F1, and also first points for Alonso on his F1 return, thanks to Raikkonen's penalty. But nonetheless, had a disappointing race after having to DNF because of sandwich bag.
Yeah.
But this time things going his way though. And just a point that I want to make to you, Vedant. if the championship were to end today, Ocon would beat Fernando in the drivers' championship. So just keep
Yeah.
that in mind. I know it's a long season, but just keep that in mind. But not a great qualifying for Alonso though.
Yeah, I know he did mention that he did not have the pace during the qualifying, but I think it's just getting to grips with that machine, because even though he had a lot of testing, he's still coming to racing terms after 2 years, racing in Formula One after 2 years, and with this new machinery, because he tested only in the 2018 car. So again, I think it's just getting to terms with that new machinery and
Yeah.
learning it.
Alonso did comment after the race that having a wet race as his second race after return in a new car was definitely really helpful for him, getting to grips with the car in wet conditions.
Yeah,
So yeah,
everything a lot happened for new learners, so it might help them going forward.
Absolutely. Also, this was the first time after 2017 that Alonso got beaten in qualifying by his teammate. Last it was by Stoffel Van Dorn. I don't remember which race exactly, but yeah, another first for Fernando Alonso in this race.
Definitely.
Yeah. Now let's come to the biggest talking point, I'd say, of this race. Bottas and Russell. You can't talk about the one without the other. After what happened this race, but yeah, what were your thoughts on it? I don't think it should have been as dramatic as it ended up being.
Yeah, I mean, on first look, it was a heavy crash, and it was between, like, you can say it was a political situation with that crash, because both of them were fighting for that Mercedes seat. So, but like after watching the replays and watching it in slow motion and all that stuff, we can safely say, and the stewards themselves concluded that it was a racing incident and no action was necessary. Bottas did give Russell enough space on the right. Obviously, the track was kinking towards the left, so that made it difficult. There was only one dry line, and Bottas had the complete right to take it. He left Russell enough space, and yeah, it was basically that.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly. I think Russell got a little bit spooked and went onto the grass, and he could have stayed on the racing line. But I think at the same time, Bottas could have showed a little more respect for Russell and done what I guess like Max and Lewis did, or like so many other people did, going into turn one, and also defending on the inside.
Yeah, certainly.
So definitely a racing incident. And obviously, like we're happy that both of them walked away safely after a crash at a very high speed. Um, but definitely a political one. And Toto got involved with some interesting comments, and I'll let you take the lead on that.
Yeah, so Toto said that he jokes with George Russell, that if you perform well, you can get the Mercedes seat, but if you don't perform well, you'll race in the Clio Cup. And after the race, he joked that this move moved him towards the Clio Cup, closer towards the Clio Cup. But certainly Toto Wolff would have been furious with both of them. I mean, I do not agree with Toto Wolff's comments, because from his point of view, George Russell had no point and shouldn't have an intention to race a Mercedes and to take risks against that Mercedes. But at the end of the day, the Williams was fighting for points, and that was one of their strongest tracks. So
Also, at the end of the day, the Mercedes had no business being down there in P10 and fighting a Williams,
Exactly.
And Bottas had, let's not overlook the fact that Bottas had a disastrous weekend. He qualified P8 when Lewis put it on P1, and we know that Valtteri is not the greatest when he has to come through the field or in wet conditions, so that didn't play well for him either. He dropped down the grid at the start too. He couldn't make up any places at the start. And just disappointing all over for Valtteri Bottas, and things are not looking good for him at all. Usually Valtteri is there during like the first few races every season, but not even that this time.
Yeah, certainly. But it will be interesting to see how Toto Wolff's decision for next year regarding that second seat, or maybe both the seats, gets affected by this race. But certainly it's just the second race of the season. We have 21 more races to go. A lot can happen between now and the new driver signings. So, yeah.
But also disappointing that George threw away points again, because I think they were fighting for P9, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, P9.
So George would have still finished in the points if they would have just kept it together and kept on going with the race. So again, I guess no one could have seen that coming. What happened, but just disappointing that we could have seen George finish in the points with the Williams
With the
team for the first time. Let's go on to Yuki. Just disappointing once again. Crash in qualifying. People were calling it the Netflix curse, of course, because Yuki was being covered by Netflix.
Yeah.
Started P20 on the grid and then had a great recovery drive. He came up to P10 before throwing it off again at turn 2 after the safety car restart after the red flag.
Yeah, certainly a strange weekend for him, because like I expected Yuki to know this track very well because he has tested a lot on it, and I expected him to shine on that track. But I think in qualifying he himself stated that he overpushed and got like overwhelmed or something like that, and couldn't keep it within, like he pushed the limits but couldn't keep it within that extra margin. But certainly disappointing to see an AlphaTauri with that pace starting P20. Great recovery drive, but yeah, disastrous weekend.
No points at the end of the day. But Netflix will definitely be happy. I think we can all look forward to an Imola GP episode for Drive to Survive in Drive to Survive season 4 next year. A lot to talk about and a lot for Netflix to cover. Let's talk about Antonio Giovinazzi. He was running in the points with his teammate, right behind his teammate Kimi Raikkonen, but a tear off got stuck in his rear brake ducts, I think.
Yeah.
And he had to make an extra pit stop just to avoid DNF. Otherwise, we could have seen both, you could say, Raikkonen and Giovinazzi finish in the points, ideally just like last year.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised. Like in the preview podcast, you stated that both the Alfa Romeos had finished in the points last season, and what do I expect? And I did not expect them to be in the points, running in the points. But yeah, just a disappointment for Giovinazzi. He did have an incident with Mazepin in qualifying, which certainly affected his qualifying lap.
But Mazepin has had similar incidents twice now. Like he's had incidents in both races, and it begs the question whether is it like a communication issue with the engineers in the Haas garage, because if they're going for the qualifying lap, why are they letting it? Mazepin is a rookie at the end of the day, so why are you putting a rookie in a position where he has to do such things, and he's not going to be able to make his qualifying lap, or just I just don't get it.
Yeah, it's certainly strange, and I think it got more disappointing for me given the fact that Mazepin was fighting for only P17 with his teammate, right? And Giovinazzi was fighting for getting into Q2. That certainly made it very difficult to digest for Giovinazzi himself, but for me as a fan as well.
Absolutely. So we haven't really touched upon why Raikkonen got his penalty, because of which Alonso ended up scoring points, which I've touched upon this before. But basically, Raikkonen didn't go through the pit lane after the safety car restart, during which he lost positions, spinning at turn 3, and he went from P7 to P10. But according to the rules, Raikkonen should have driven through the pit lane, since he was not able to get back to his previous position, in this case P7, before the first safety car line. And because he failed to do so, he was hit with a 30-second penalty after the race. And I think there was like some confusion on the pit wall regarding whether or not he could have overtaken the cars with the engineers. The engineer was not clear on that, so he was told to not overtake any cars behind the safety car, since it would create a safety issue according to the engineers. But it did not play.
Yeah, I think the confusion was it being a safety car restart or a red flag restart, because on a standing start and on a essential proper start, you have to regain all your positions after the warm-up lap before the safety car line, and this was a warm-up lap, but I think they thought and got confused it being a safety car lap. So, yeah.
Yep, definitely, and the conditions were wet too. So yeah, let's get back to talking about Mazepin and Schumacher. Mazepin again finishing way behind Mick, even though Mick had that rather embarrassing collision on the pit lane exit, and then he had to go around the Imola circuit since the pit lane was closed like a couple of times, losing a lot of time. But even then, he finished ahead of Mazepin. And then Latifi also throwing away an opportunity for points finish essentially with the pace that Williams had.
Yeah, certainly. See, the thing about Mazepin is if you leave apart his on off-track antics and you focus only on his on-track performance, he's not performing very well. He does not have the pace. He does not have the respect of other drivers. He is making too many mistakes, and he's not essentially being a good competitive Formula One driver even with his teammate. So it's certainly a very difficult thing to digest that he is a Formula One driver
on the grid. Yeah. Absolutely, and it was kind of funny when Mazepin was getting the heat when Latifi made the mistake and crashed into the wall because of himself. But people didn't know that until the replay was shown, and everybody thought it was Mazepin who had hit Latifi.
Yeah.
So that was kind of funny. But yeah, quite uneventful for Haas. Finishing where everybody expected them to finish. And let's talk about the Aston Martins, Vettel, Stroll, and also a little bit about the FIA and their the way the stewards took their decisions this weekend. A lot of questions to be asked of that too. Both Aston Martins had brake issues on the car before they even started the race, and they had to change out brakes before. Great race in the wet once again from Lance Stroll. I think he again showed why he is on the F1 grid and why he's a force to reckon with. And then Vettel having a terrible race because of multiple reasons.
Yeah, certainly. His brake issues certainly did not help him. A new car which he's really struggling with, genuinely struggling with. He's like with the Aston Martin, and his penalty, that timing of that penalty for not having the tires on at the 5-minute mark, that penalty, 10-second stop go penalty, it was so unfortunate for him because he had just completed his pit stop to move from the inters to the slick tires, and then he literally got hit with that penalty on the pit exit, and he had to do one or two laps he did and come back again, do a 10-second stop and go, which
became like a 30-second penalty.
Yeah,
at the end of the day,
it really hurt him, and then eventually he had to bring the car in because of the overheating brakes. So a really disappointing day for Vettel.
Absolutely. Yeah, which is why I was like, and FIA also again, they did that, and then also Stroll's penalty was a little questionable at first because the incident had not been noted until like the very end of the race, and then Stroll got a 5-second penalty, which essentially gave Gasly back his position, like his finishing position. Gasly went ahead to P7 and Stroll fell back to P8. They switched places. However, last race when the question was asked of Michael Massey, that what would have been the penalty for Max Verstappen had he not given the position back to Lewis Hamilton, and Michael Massey said that it would have been a 10-second penalty. So it's kind of interesting that Stroll was only slapped with a 5-second penalty at the end of the race. But yeah, again, so a lot of work to be done by the FIA again. Michael Massey needs to run a tighter ship, and there's a lot that needs to be done on their behalf.
Exactly.
But yeah, a very eventful race, but still a few additional talking points remain. And one thing that's pretty interesting that again came from the article by Mark Hughes, the Monday Morning Debrief, was, are pit stops going to decide the World Drivers' Championship when it's so close?
Certainly, I mean, they both the drivers like Max and Lewis are on top of the game. Both have exceptionally fast cars. Like, they are essentially 1 and 2 without any differentiation. And pit stops, like we saw at Imola, that 1.5 second extra for Lewis Hamilton certainly cost him a lot.
P1.
Yeah, and And with
Absolutely.
with that topic,
Also,
yeah, with that topic, I would encourage you to go to your idea about the sprint race, how you think that would affect it.
yeah. So when I was reading that article, and Marquez made that point about pit stops being the deciding factor between the World Drivers' Championship, and I sat down, I was thinking about what would it take Max to out and out win this championship, to have everything in his bag, and I was like, Red Bull is essentially the fastest car on the track this season. So our sprint races, the wild card that Red Bull need to seal the World Drivers and World Constructors Championship this season. Will sprint races essentially help Red Bull seal this championship? And I think that's a thought for everyone else and all our listeners to um, ponder on and see if they think the same. And if sprint races could play in the favor of the Red Bulls more than the Mercs.
Yeah, that's certainly a very interesting take because we know Mercedes are very, like, we know that the strategy war is very important for that drivers championship, and without pit stops, there's no strategy war. So yeah, quite an interesting take.
I mean, but yeah, absolutely, and but great strategy call from Mercedes to try and overcut Verstappen because they knew the undercut won't work because Lewis didn't have the pace um, on the intermediates right away. But compared to the slicks, Lewis could have put in a faster in lap than a faster out lap from Max. But also other news stories developing from Aston Martin. Otmar Nafzar had said that he would take FIA to court regarding the new rules and regulations, but I think that is not the case anymore after he talked to the FIA and looked into the procedures and everything that FIA did in order to build these new rules and regulations.
Yeah, it was certainly a very strange comment from Otmar, that we'll take them to court because it is affecting us unfairly. But yeah, it's good to see that they are content for now with the procedures taken, so we can move along with the racing.
Yes, absolutely. Interesting comment from Lucas Di Grassi too about the Imola track and telling how an old school track that causes drivers just a little bit of pain can produce interesting races compared to the new tracks that are not as interesting and are just worried about the rest of the things and not racing. And on the same note, Miami GP got announced for 2022, and Miami GP has signed a 10-year contract with F1. So another race in the US, finally, something that F1 has been saying that it will deliver ever since Liberty Media took over the operations.
Yeah, it took them 4 years and some 70 plus simulations, 70 plus layout simulations to get that track ready. But it's going to be interesting to see another race in the US. US, as they have mentioned many times before, is a great potential market for them. And with that covered, now it's time to get a race in Africa.
Absolutely, I'm on board with that, and I think a lot of people will join us on that bandwagon. Well, that is all for this podcast, Vedant. Any closing thoughts from you?
Well, we have Portimao in 2 weeks' time. Portimao is one of, like, it's a great track with less overtaking opportunities, but the layout and the undulations and the weather do make it an interesting track. We have a lot of wind disturbance, and it will be interesting to see how many cars have a stable rear end and how many get affected by that, crosswind and things, stuff like that.
I don't have anything more to say, so we're gonna end the podcast here. Thank you, Vedant, for joining us once again, and thank you to the listeners for making it all the way through this podcast. We'll catch you on the next one.